Stop the presses. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, yes, the seemingly unshakable Hollywood/Nashville power couple, have shockingly called it quits after nearly 20 years of marriage. If you just spit out your coffee, you're not alone. This split has fans gasping in disbelief, and we're here to spill all the tea. Lots and lots and lots of tea. How could Nicole and Keith, who always looked so blissfully in love, seriously, all those red carpet kisses and Instagram gush fests, be heading for Splitsville? Because we are going to dive deep into this breakup bombshell, the juicy timeline of their romance, the signs of trouble we all missed, the wild rumors, powder claws, anyone, fan reactions, and what might happen next. Stay tuned. This story has more twists than a country song. Before the drama, let's rewind to the love story that had us all swooning. Nicole Kidman, Hollywood's elegant redhead queen, first met Keith Urban, country music's Aussie heartthrob, in 2005 at a gala event, fittingly celebrating their Australian roots. Nicole later admitted she was instantly smitten. Rumor has it Keith was so tongue-tied he waited months to call her. But when he finally did, sparks flew. They had a whirlwind romance, engaged after only about 3 months of dating, and tied the knot in June 2006 with a fairy tale wedding in Sydney, Australia. Picture this: Nicole in a gorgeous ivory gown and Keith in a sleek suit saying "I do" under candlelight and starry skies, with family, friends, and Aussie celebs cheering them on. It was the kind of storybook wedding you'd expect from an Oscar winner and a country superstar. Fast forward, and Nicole and Keith built a beautiful life together. They welcomed 2 daughters, Sunday Rose, born 2008, and Faith Margaret, born 2010, who quickly became the center of their world. Nicole had already been mom to 2 older kids, from her marriage to Tom Cruise. But with Keith, she embraced motherhood all over again. The couple settled in Nashville, Tennessee, blending Hollywood glamour with country charm. They were often seen attending church on Sundays, doing school runs for the girls, and strolling hand in hand on their farm property, basically living that down-to-earth family life, just with a lot more Oscars and Grammys on the shelves. And oh, those public displays of affection. For years, Nicole and Keith gave us major couple goals. They couldn't keep their hands off each other on red carpets, always hugging, kissing, and gazing into each other's eyes like love-struck teens. Their constant kissing even became a running joke in some circles. These two were not shy about their love. On social media, they posted adorable anniversary tributes and family photos. Keith would call Nicole his baby girl, more on that later, and Nicole praised Keith as the best husband and father. From the outside, their romance looked rock solid and sweeter than a country love song. But like any long-term relationship, it wasn't all red roses and fairy dust. We'll get to the trouble in a minute, but first, let's not forget, 20 years together in showbiz is like 100 in normal years. This duo had some incredible highs along the way, both as a couple and in their individual careers. Nicole and Keith weren't just a couple, they were a powerhouse team of superstars from 2 different worlds. Let's take a quick look at their greatest hits, literally and figuratively. Nicole Kidman's iconic roles and awards. Nicole is Hollywood royalty. She even played the Queen of Atlantis in the movie Aquaman. Over the last 2 decades, she's delivered one iconic performance after another. She dazzled us in Moulin Rouge, earning a Golden Globe, gave an Oscar-winning performance as Virginia Woolf in The Hours, scared us silly in The Others, and later conquered television with Emmy-winning roles in Big Little Lies and The Undoing. Awards, you name it, she's got it. Academy Award, multiple Golden Globes, an Emmy, a BAFTA, and a reputation as one of the most versatile A-list actresses on the planet. Nicole's career didn't slow down one bit during her marriage. In fact, she often said Keith's love gave her confidence to tackle even more projects. In 2020, she thanked Keith in an award speech for being my rock while she filmed emotionally heavy scenes. Keith Urban's music legend status. Don't think for a second that Keith was living in Nicole's shadow. He's a country music legend in his own right. With that charming Aussie drawl and killer guitar skills, Keith pumped out hit after hit. Chart toppers? How about Somebody Like You, Days Go By, You'll Think of Me, Blue Ain't Your Color, and so many more. He's won 4 Grammy Awards, yes, 4, plus a truckload of CMAs and ACMs, country music awards, including Entertainer of the Year. His concerts sell out worldwide, and he even did a stint as a popular judge on American Idol. In short, Keith's a bona fide superstar of country. He often credited Nicole as his muse. Get this, many of his love songs were written for her. He once revealed the romantic track, Got It Right. This time was about knowing he'd found true love with Nicole, and the uplifting duet, The Fighter, with Carrie Underwood, was inspired by things he and Nicole would say to reassure each other. Talk about wearing his heart on his sleeve. Together, Nicole and Keith were a red carpet dream team, supporting each other's careers 100%. Nicole would be there clapping proudly in the front row at Keith's award show performances. Keith would accompany Nicole to movie premieres and even huge Hollywood events like the Oscars and Golden Globes, flashing that proud husband smile. They balanced two mega careers and still made time for family, or at least it seemed that way. But beneath the surface of this glittering power couple, cracks were forming. Let's dig into what really went wrong behind closed doors. So, how did a love story that looked so perfect end up crumbling? Sources close to the couple say it wasn't one big thing, it was a bunch of little things, and okay, maybe a few big things too, that piled up over the years. Let's break down the red flags and signs of trouble that, in hindsight, hinted at this shocking split. Hectic schedules and long periods apart. This might be the biggest factor. For all their talk of, we'll never spend more than a few days apart, Nicole and Keith's careers often had other plans. In recent years, they were quite literally living on different continents half the time. Nicole has been filming movies and prestige TV series back to back. At one point, she had 3 movies and 3 shows in 1 year. She'd be on set in London or LA while Keith was on a world tour or filming a music competition show for a new TV series called The Road. In 2025, insiders say Keith kicked off a major tour in May and spent the summer jetting across the US, Canada, and Australia performing to sold-out crowds. Meanwhile, Nicole was often overseas shooting a movie. Practical Magic 2, anyone? They went from attached at the hip to living separate lives for weeks, even months at a time. In fact, rumor has it they quietly began living apart as early as the start of last summer. Keith staying in a condo in Nashville while Nicole remained at the family home with the kids. Friends say by then they were emotionally and physically apart more than together. Ouch. With those busy schedules came sacrifices. One particularly telling incident. Back in 2016, Keith's beloved father passed away in Australia. Nicole, unfortunately, didn't attend her own father-in-law's funeral. She was in the middle of filming a project in England and couldn't drop out. Keith publicly defended her, saying he understood work obligations, but sources whispered that he wished she'd been there when he needed her most. On the flip side, when Nicole's father died in 2014, Keith was there, serving as a pallbearer and supporting her through that tragedy. These kinds of incidents may have planted seeds of resentment. It's the classic conflict of career versus family. Nicole is fiercely dedicated to her craft, and Keith loves that about her. But perhaps he sometimes felt like her work took priority over him. Over time, those feelings can fester. Another dynamic that might surprise fans. Nicole and Keith have opposite personalities in some ways. Nicole has described herself as an introvert. She's shy at parties, hates public speaking, and prefers quiet nights in. Keith, by contrast, is the life of the party. A self-professed extrovert who thrives on excitement. Remember, this is a guy who performs for 50,000 screaming fans on tour. At first, their differences probably balanced out. Opposites attract, right? But being so different can also cause friction. Friends say they sometimes clashed on simple things, like how to spend their downtime. Keith might want to host a big barbecue with friends or go out honky-tonking in Nashville, while Nicole might crave a low-key evening with just the family. Over 19 to 20 years, introvert versus extrovert debates can get tiring. One insider joked that Keith drags Nicole to industry parties and she drags him to meditation sessions, each slightly out of their element. They made it work for a long time, but those differences were always there under the surface. We have to mention this chapter. Early in their marriage, Keith battled substance abuse issues. Just 4 months after their 2006 wedding, he hit rock bottom and checked into rehab for alcohol and powder addiction. Nicole, who had just become a newlywed, stood by him through that 3-month treatment. That must have been an incredibly tough start for their marriage. Keith later admitted, "I caused the implosion of my fresh marriage. It's a miracle it survived." Nicole's love and faith pulled him through, and he's been sober since. Nicole even reportedly put a special clause in their prenuptial agreement, more on that crazy powder clause rumor later, to keep him accountable. They got past that crisis, but it left scars. Trust had to be rebuilt, and Nicole likely always had a bit of worry in the back of her mind. While Keith has praised Nicole for saving him and keeping him sober, the specter of addiction was an early test that might resurface in arguments even years later. Some sources hint Keith may have struggled with staying on the wagon at points, nothing public, but Nicole's friends were watchful. As cracks started to show, Nicole and Keith didn't just give up, they actively tried to fix things. Word is they sought marriage counseling at various points to work through their issues. They were determined to make it work, and for a long time it did. They even shared some of their relationship secrets in interviews, which in retrospect sounds like a couple working hard to keep the spark alive. Nicole once revealed that they never text each other, ever. Instead, they vowed to always call or FaceTime, saying that texting can lead to miscommunication. Quirky, right? In an age where even grandparents text, these two stuck to old-fashioned phone calls and voice-to-voice or skin-to-skin contact, as Nicole put it. They also had a rule from their priest: always kiss hello and kiss goodbye, no matter what. And get this spicy tidbit. Nicole cheerfully admitted they installed a double-headed shower in their home and called it the key to a successful marriage. We'll leave the implications of that one to your imagination. Keith even tattooed Nicole on his arm and reportedly the nickname Baby Girl on his neck, his pet name for her. These two were serious about staying connected intimately and emotionally. When work forced them apart, they had a ritual. Keith would write Nicole love letters every single night he was away on tour, and she'd write back or keep them to read when she missed him. They also would hop on planes for just a day if it meant squeezing in a quick 24 hours together between commitments. Talk about dedication. But despite all those efforts, counseling, creative reconnection tricks, you name it, something shifted in the past couple of years. Insiders say by 2023 to 2024, the romance had cooled behind closed doors. Sure, they still smiled for cameras, but friends felt a distance. One source described it as two people living parallel lives rather than intertwining ones. There were even whispers about intimacy struggles, that the once fiery passion between them had dimmed. It's normal for any long marriage to mellow out, but apparently this went beyond the usual. Nicole was busy being a mom and a movie star. Keith was either on the road or in the studio. They were often exhausted. It's easy to see how the spark might fade when you're rarely in the same bed, let alone the same country. Let's address the juicy elephant in the room: jealousy. When one spouse is a sexy movie star filming love scenes with handsome co-stars, and the other is a flirty musician always on tour surrounded by adoring fans, there might be some jealousy, right? Well, in Nicole and Keith's case, it seems there was a bit of both. Keith has always talked about how proud he is of Nicole's acting, but he's also human. And recently, the jealousy bug bit hard. Case in point, Nicole filmed a romantic comedy, A Family Affair, with Zac Efron, who, let's be real, is a young, extremely fit heartthrob. In mid-2025, a radio host dared to ask Keith how he feels watching Nicole have steamy scenes with a guy like Zac. Keith's reaction: he stormed off the interview. No joke. He literally cut the Zoom call the moment that topic came up, leaving the DJ stunned. His team later acted like it was a technical issue, but nobody bought that. The incident made headlines, and fans were like, uh-oh, trouble in paradise? It certainly hinted that Keith was not cool with that question. Or maybe with Nicole's on-screen dalliances. Nicole herself once said Keith understands it's just acting, but that awkward moment suggested a nerve had been hit. On Nicole's side, she's had her own reasons for twinges of jealousy. Remember those early cheating rumors? In 2006, right around their engagement, a model came forward claiming she'd had a fling with Keith while he was dating Nicole. He fiercely denied it, and Nicole seemingly believed him, but man, what a horrible time for such gossip to emerge, right when she was planning her wedding. And during Keith's bad days of substance abuse, who knows what indiscretions may have occurred. Nicole chose to trust and forgive, but a seed of doubt might have planted back then. Additionally, Keith on tour is basically a chick magnet. He's charismatic, good-looking, and often singing emotional love songs to crowds of women. Nicole's a confident woman, but any wife might occasionally wonder about temptations on the road. So yes, behind those loved-up public images, insecurity and jealousy nipped at them over the years. It was usually quiet, but recently it seemed to boil up, like with that Zac Efron interview walkout. If even DJs knew to poke that topic, it means people sensed Keith's sensitivity about Nicole's leading men. One fascinating insight an industry insider shared: marriages between two huge stars can struggle unless one partner is willing to play the less famous role. At first, Nicole and Keith managed this dance perfectly. She's a mega famous actress, he's a mega famous musician. Different lanes so they could each shine. Nicole would stand back at the Grammys while Keith soaked up music accolades, and Keith would happily play doting +1 at the Oscars for Nicole. No direct competition, but still. Imagine two big egos under one roof. There's bound to be tension at times. The insider theorized that maybe over time Keith felt overshadowed by Nicole's global movie star fame. He's huge in music, yes, but Nicole's fame is on another planet. Oscar winner, household name worldwide, etc. We don't know if this truly bothered him, but the timing is interesting. Recently, Keith started branching out beyond music, taking on that TV show, for example, almost as if he wanted to expand his spotlight. Nicole, meanwhile, just kept climbing, even receiving a prestigious AFI Life Achievement Award in 2024, a big Hollywood honor. Keith was right by her side at that ceremony, beaming. Yet some observers whispered, he's proud, but he might be feeling a little like Mr. Kidman these days. Who knows? It's speculation, but the dynamic of two superstars can create silent power struggles. And if one partner suddenly doesn't want to be second fiddle in any arena, sparks could fly, and not the good kind. That's a lot of underlying drama, right? Distance, resentment, personality differences, addiction battles, jealousy, career clashes. The Kidman-Urban marriage had all the classic pressure points. They survived so much for so long. Seriously, kudos to them for making it nearly 2 decades. But by mid-2025, those unresolved issues seem to have reached a boiling point. Now for the question everyone's asking, what exactly happened to finally break them up in 2025? From what insiders are leaking, it sounds like Keith Urban was the one to pull the plug. Multiple sources say Nicole was blindsided and heartbroken. She truly believed they could work through any problem right up until the end. She didn't want this and fought hard to save the marriage. But Keith, well, one source put it bluntly, he's already moved on. Back in early summer 2025, Keith quietly moved out of their Nashville home and got his own place in town. When a husband secretly gets his own apartment, that's definitely a bad sign. Their inner circle actually saw the split coming. Friends of Keith say it wasn't a secret that he'd checked out of the marriage. To them, the breakup felt inevitable. Meanwhile, poor Nicole was apparently still trying everything, likely suggesting more counseling, heart-to-heart talks, maybe trial separations. But Keith's mind was made up. Some unconfirmed rumors hint that Keith might have been going through a bit of a midlife crisis of sorts. He turned 57, he's touring with tons of younger acts, perhaps questioning if he was missing out on something. One insider ominously said Keith had been making questionable choices for some time now, without elaborating. Excuse me, what choices? Are we talking a wandering eye, partying, a relapse? They didn't say, but it certainly adds intrigue. The gossip mill is spinning wild theories. Another source simply said that for those who know the couple, it felt more like they gradually drifted apart rather than one explosive incident. Maybe it's a bit of both, a slow drift plus a few questionable choices, pushing Keith to a point of no return. Whatever the exact catalyst, by late September 2025, it was official. Nicole and Keith were done. The public found out on September 29th, 2025, when the news of their separation hit headlines thanks to a TMZ scoop and confirmation from People magazine shortly after. The very next day, on September 30, Nicole filed for divorce in Nashville court. It's like once Keith forced her hand, she ripped off the Band-Aid and got the legal ball rolling fast. In the filing, she cited the classic irreconcilable differences. And get this, she listed their date of separation as that very day, September 30. Why? Possibly to make a statement that she considered the marriage fully over only when she filed, even though he'd been living apart for months. It's a little legal nuance, but interesting nonetheless. Nicole's feelings were made painfully clear by sources close to her. She was devastated, shocked, and felt very betrayed. Imagine, one day you're celebrating an anniversary. They had marked 19 years in June, with Nicole posting "Happy anniversary, baby" on Instagram, and Keith replying only with a heart emoji, perhaps a hint of detachment. And a few months later, you're signing divorce papers. She reportedly believed up until recently that they'd pull through. In her heart, Nicole believed she could save their marriage. So the fact that Keith wasn't willing to try anymore must have cut deep. Being the romantic she is, Nicole didn't give up easily, which is why some friends think if Keith ever had a change of heart, she might actually consider reconciling. We'll talk more about that possibility at the end. Don't count this love story entirely out just yet, folks. On Keith's side, he has been pretty quiet publicly, but those in his camp hint that he'd been unhappy for a while and finally reached a breaking point. One telling quote, Keith had just been going through some stuff. That's pretty vague, but perhaps he was wrestling with personal demons or simply his own feelings about the marriage and he couldn't fake it anymore. It sounds like he initiated the separation quietly, got his ducks in a row, new house, parenting plan arranged, etc. And only then did Nicole realize he was really serious. It must have felt like a rug pulled out from under her. In any case, by the time the world found out, things between Nicole and Keith had already been decided behind closed doors. Which brings us to what's next, especially regarding the kids, money, and all those spicy rumors swirling around this split. You know, a breakup of this magnitude comes with maximum gossip. Let's dive into some of the craziest rumors and the public's reaction. When the news broke, fans of the couple basically went through the 5 stages of grief on social media in real time. Shock was first. No one outside their inner circle saw this coming. Nicole and Keith had always talked so lovingly about each other in interviews that many assumed they were in it for life. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all flooded with posts like, "If Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban can't make it, is love even real?" There were memes of celeb couples dropping like flies, since another famous Aussie couple, Hugh Jackman and Deborah Lee Furness, also split recently. Rough year for love down under. Some fans held out hope it was just a trial separation or a nasty rumor, but when Nicole's divorce filing became public record, the reality set in. Heartbreak and sadness from fans turned into speculation pretty quickly. Suddenly, everyone was a detective, combing through the couple's recent photos and posts for clues. Eagle-eyed followers pointed out that Keith hadn't posted about Nicole in ages. True, his last Instagram with her was many months ago, while she posted that anniversary pic solo. Others noted Keith looked less affectionate in their last few public outings. A few fans even re-watched Nicole's movies and joked, maybe Keith finally got jealous of Alexander Skarsgård in Big Little Lies, or Zac Efron broke them up. We're pretty sure it's not Zac's fault, but people love a juicy narrative. There's also a bit of a Team Nicole versus Team Keith divide brewing. Nicole's stans are furious on her behalf. Many see her as this loving, devoted wife who was betrayed by a midlife crisis-having husband. They point out how she always spoke glowingly of him and are dragging Keith for walking away from his family. On the flip side, Keith's fans, and some who just sympathize with him, suggest that maybe Nicole's intense career and alleged controlling nature played a role, implying Keith might have felt smothered or under her thumb. There were always tabloid rumors that Nicole ran the show at home. The truth is likely somewhere in between, but it's fascinating and a little messy to see fans take sides without any of us really knowing what went on privately. One particularly juicy tidbit from an exclusive source claims that Keith has already moved on. What does that mean exactly? A new woman? There's zero confirmation of an affair or new girlfriend as of now, so let's not jump to conclusions. It might simply mean he mentally moved on long ago, which tracks with how decisively he ended things. But tabloids are on the lookout for any sign of Keith stepping out with someone new. If he so much as has coffee with a female friend, expect paparazzi frenzy. Nicole, for her part, is reportedly nowhere near ready to move on. She's leaning on her sister and family for support and focusing on her kids and work. Publicly, neither Nicole nor Keith has made a statement or given an interview about the breakup yet. No sappy Instagram notes, no tell-all talk show appearances, radio silence so far. Which is interesting because usually at least a generic joint statement like, "We have made the difficult decision to separate, we remain friends, blah blah," comes out. The lack of that suggests this split might be rougher than we thought. Possibly some legal or personal tensions making them hold off on saying anything jointly. Here's a quirky story not everyone knows. Just a couple months before news of the breakup, Nicole applied for residency in Portugal, with Keith planning to do the same. Random, right? Apparently, they loved vacationing there and were interested in the country's Golden Visa program, which grants residency to investors. They were even house hunting in Lisbon. At the time, fans thought, they're planning a romantic European getaway home for their golden years. Now, with hindsight, it looks a bit odd. Were they trying to start a fresh chapter abroad to rekindle things, or was it more of a business move? Either way, Keith missed the Portugal appointment due to his tour, and Nicole went alone. By now, that plan is probably on ice. It's a small side story, but it shows how up until recently, they were at least making future plans together, which makes the split even more shocking. Okay, this is the kind of salacious gossip you came for. Word on the street is that Nicole and Keith's 2006 prenup had a very unique provision, nicknamed the Powder Clause. Yes, seriously. Allegedly, the agreement stated that for every year Keith stayed sober and clean, he would receive $600,000 from Nicole's fortune. Essentially, it was both a reward for good behavior and a financial penalty if he relapsed, because he'd forfeit those payments. By the time they hit 19 years of marriage, that pot would equal $11.4 million. That's a huge incentive to keep clean. Now, we have to emphasize, this is a rumor that neither of them ever confirmed publicly. It circulated in tabloids, and even some legal experts weighed in, saying it's plausible given Keith's rehab history. If true, it shows Nicole was deadly serious about Keith maintaining sobriety and their healthy life together. The irony is, if Keith indeed was the one to initiate the split, he essentially walked away from potentially millions more she'd have owed him for future sober years. One lawyer quipped that he must have either really been unhappy or really secure in his own finances to forfeit that kind of cash by ending the marriage now. Maybe both. Keith's not exactly hurting for money himself, and peace of mind is priceless, as they say. The Powder Clause story has added a juicy financial angle to this breakup, feeding the tabloids for sure. It's not every day you hear about a marriage contract that pays a spouse to stay away from drugs. Money, money, money. Speaking of finances, let's talk fortune. This divorce isn't just an emotional tangle, it's a major financial split too. Together, Nicole and Keith reportedly amassed about $325 million in assets. The breakdown, approximately $250 million, is Nicole's, thanks to decades of blockbuster films, back-end deals, and savvy investments. And around $75 million is Keith's, from album sales, touring, and his own ventures. That's a big gap, and it reflects an interesting power dynamic in the marriage. Nicole was significantly wealthier. To their credit, we never heard about money squabbles. Presumably, they each kept their earnings separate to an extent and weren't trying to one-up each other's paychecks. And here's some good news. It appears their split won't be a nasty courtroom war over money. Early reports say that neither is asking for alimony or spousal support. In fact, they've already sorted a lot of the terms privately, likely in that prenup and a recent post-nup agreement. They're both mega rich and fairly practical, it seems, so don't expect a Johnny Depp/Amber Heard-style mudslinging trial or public fights over mansions. Thank goodness, it's better for them and for us gawkers that this part stays drama-free. But for those curious, they do have quite the real estate portfolio. Multiple homes in Nashville, Australia, Beverly Hills, etc. How those will be divided or sold off is still under wraps. We might see some luxury listings pop up soon. Now, beyond the rumors and money, what about the two most important people in this situation? No, not Nicole and Keith, I mean their daughters. Let's see how the kids factor into this breakup. For all the glitz and gossip, at the heart of this story are two teenage girls, Sunday Rose, 17, and Faith Margaret, 14. They're almost grown, but this is undoubtedly a tough time for them. Nicole and Keith have always been fiercely protective of their kids' privacy. You rarely see the girls in public, save for an occasional Instagram shot from mom, and even then, usually half-hidden faces or from behind. They tried to give their daughters as normal an upbringing as possible in Nashville, away from Hollywood's spotlight. So how are the kids handling the split? Reports say Nicole and Keith sat down with them quietly over the summer and were honest about what was happening. There was likely some family therapy or counseling involved to help them process smart parenting move. Sunday and Faith are said to be staying mostly with Nicole in the only home they've ever known. In fact, the divorce paperwork revealed a detailed custody arrangement. Nicole will be the primary residential parent, with the girls spending about 306 days a year with her and 59 days with Keith. Basically, Nicole has them for the school year, and most of the time, while Keith gets them on certain weekends, holidays, and part of the summer. This roughly works out to him having them every other weekend and some vacation time. It's a bit lopsided, but not unusual when one parent, Nicole, has the more stable home base, and the other, Keith, has a job that involves lots of travel. Importantly, the documents also say no child support will be exchanged, likely because both parents are well off and they agreed the kids' needs will be jointly provided for without monthly checks, and both declined alimony. So, financially and legally, it's a pretty civil agreement. They also included a clause that they will not speak badly about each other in front of the children, and will encourage the girls to love and be comfortable with both mom and dad. Kudos to them for that mature approach. The last thing you want is kids caught in a loyalty tug-of-war. Nicole, being the primary caregiver, is reportedly focusing on keeping life as normal as possible for the teens. That means school, extracurriculars, hanging with their friends, all continuing as usual. Fun tidbit, their older daughter, Sunday, has shown interest in the arts. She even did a little modeling after turning 16 because her parents had a rule that no fashion work until you're 16 and school comes first. In an interview earlier this year, Sunday shared those two big rules from mom and dad. Clearly, Nicole and Keith agreed on keeping their daughters grounded and prioritizing education. Keith, while not having day-to-day custody, adores his girls. This is likely extremely hard for him too. He's been a doting dad, writing songs for them, talking about them lovingly in interviews. But because of his touring lifestyle, it probably made sense for the girls to mostly live with Nicole. The good news, since they're older, Sunday and Faith can communicate freely with Dad anytime and even travel to visit him on tour when school's out. And Nashville is home base for both parents, at least for now, so Keith isn't far away. We expect Keith will still be a very present father, showing up at school events when he can, taking them on fun trips when it's his time, etc. And Nicole will continue to be the rock at home, like she has been. They may not be a couple anymore, but sources say they both agreed the kids come first. So far, it seems they're living up to that. There's been no ugly public fight that would embarrass the girls, and they quietly handled custody with minimal fuss. One can only hope it stays that way. The daughters themselves have stayed mum publicly, and we wouldn't expect otherwise. They're private figures. If anything, maybe down the road we'll get an indirect sense of how they're doing. Perhaps Nicole or Keith will mention the girls are coping okay in an interview or something. For now, the family is in healing mode. So, after all this dish, where do things stand and what's next for Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban? As of now, the divorce is moving forward and their nearly 19-year marriage is coming to an official end. Neither has spoken publicly, but we're watching closely for any statements. If history is any guide, expect something classy and brief, perhaps an Instagram note or a joint press release thanking fans for their support and requesting privacy. Both Nicole and Keith have managed past personal matters with dignity, so don't expect a public mudslinging battle. They'll likely keep it as civil and low-key as possible from here. That said, sources say Nicole is deeply hurt and feels betrayed, and Keith is resolute in his decision. The vibe right now, reconciliation is unlikely. But in Hollywood and Nashville, never say never. There's a whisper of hope among some romantics that maybe, just maybe, after some time apart, Keith might have a change of heart. Remember Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton? They divorced and remarried, only to divorce again, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Even our celebrity commentator earlier mused that perhaps Nicole and Keith could be the pair that finds their way back to each other down the line. As one insider put it ain't over till it's over. At least one close friend of Nicole's believes if Keith did a 180 and genuinely recommitted, Nicole would consider taking him back because she truly didn't want the marriage to end. But, and this is a big but, there's no indication from Keith that he's second-guessing anything. By all accounts, he's pushing forward, focusing on his tour and new projects, and adjusting to bachelor life in his new pad. Importantly, the documents also say no child support will be exchanged, likely because both parents are well off and they agreed the kids' needs will be jointly provided for without monthly checks, and both declined alimony. So, financially and legally, it's a pretty civil agreement. They also included a clause that they will not speak badly about each other in front of the children, and will encourage the girls to love and be comfortable with both mom and dad. Kudos to them for that mature approach. The last thing you want is kids caught in a loyalty tug-of-war. Nicole, being the primary caregiver, is reportedly focusing on keeping life as normal as possible for the teens. That means school, extracurriculars, hanging with their friends, all continuing as usual. Fun tidbit, their older daughter, Sunday, has shown interest in the arts. She even did a little modeling after turning 16 because her parents had a rule that no fashion work until you're 16 and school comes first. In an interview earlier this year, Sunday shared those two big rules from mom and dad. Clearly, Nicole and Keith agreed on keeping their daughters grounded and prioritizing education. Keith, while not having day-to-day custody, adores his girls. This is likely extremely hard for him too. He's been a doting dad, writing songs for them, talking about them lovingly in interviews. But because of his touring lifestyle, it probably made sense for the girls to mostly live with Nicole. The good news, since they're older, Sunday and Faith can communicate freely with Dad anytime and even travel to visit him on tour when school's out. And Nashville is home base for both parents, at least for now, so Keith isn't far away. We expect Keith will still be a very present father, showing up at school events when he can, taking them on fun trips when it's his time, etc. And Nicole will continue to be the rock at home, like she has been. They may not be a couple anymore, but sources say they both agreed the kids come first. So far, it seems they're living up to that. There's been no ugly public fight that would embarrass the girls, and they quietly handled custody with minimal fuss. One can only hope it stays that way. The daughters themselves have stayed mum publicly, and we wouldn't expect otherwise. They're private figures. If anything, maybe down the road we'll get an indirect sense of how they're doing. Perhaps Nicole or Keith will mention the girls are coping okay in an interview or something. For now, the family is in healing mode. So, after all this dish, where do things stand and what's next for Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban? As of now, the divorce is moving forward and their nearly 19-year marriage is coming to an official end. Neither has spoken publicly, but we're watching closely for any statements. If history is any guide, expect something classy and brief, perhaps an Instagram note or a joint press release thanking fans for their support and requesting privacy. Both Nicole and Keith have managed past personal matters with dignity, so don't expect a public mudslinging battle. They'll likely keep it as civil and low-key as possible from here. That said, sources say Nicole is deeply hurt and feels betrayed, and Keith is resolute in his decision. The vibe right now, reconciliation is unlikely. But in Hollywood and Nashville, never say never. There's a whisper of hope among some romantics that maybe, just maybe, after some time apart, Keith might have a change of heart. Remember Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton? They divorced and remarried, only to divorce again, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Even our celebrity commentator earlier mused that perhaps Nicole and Keith could be the pair that finds their way back to each other down the line. As one insider put it ain't over till it's over. At least one close friend of Nicole's believes if Keith did a 180 and genuinely recommitted, Nicole would consider taking him back because she truly didn't want the marriage to end. But, and this is a big but, there's no indication from Keith that he's second-guessing anything. By all accounts, he's pushing forward, focusing on his tour and new projects, and adjusting to bachelor life in his new pad. For Nicole, focusing on work might be her solace. She's already thrown herself into new films. 6 upcoming projects were on her slate. This woman doesn't slow down. She's also leaning on her support network. Her sister Antonia, whom she's super close to, and her mom and other family back in Australia have been a rock for her, according to reports. We might see Nicole make more trips to Australia to be with her mom and family as she navigates this change. And you can bet her close girlfriends, hello, Reese Witherspoon, Naomi Watts, etc., are rallying around her too. Maybe a girl's getaway or just lots of wine nights and hugs. Keith, meanwhile, will likely pour his feelings into his music. He's a songwriter after all. Don't be surprised if his next album has some heartfelt, maybe heartbreaking tunes that fans will dissect for clues about the split. He's always been candid in song, if not in interviews, about his emotions. One more thing to watch, public appearances. The next time Nicole has a premiere or Keith has a big show, all eyes will be on them for signs of strain or liberation. Will Nicole still wear her wedding ring? She was actually spotted with it on even after secretly signing divorce docs. Old habits die hard, or maybe a glimmer of hope. By the time this video's out, she may have finally ditched it. How long before each is seen without it? And the big question, will either of them step out with a new love interest in the coming months? That's the kind of development that truly slams the reconciliation door shut. If Keith is indeed already moved on emotionally, some speculate he might quietly be seeing someone, but there's no evidence yet. Nicole, for her part, doesn't strike us as someone who would rebound quickly. She once said Keith was her last love. Cue the tears. In the end, this breakup story is still unfolding. It's sad, it's shocking, and it's a reminder that even fairy tale romances can hit reality hard. But Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban are professionals at love and life. They handled nearly 2 decades together with grace and passion, and we have faith they'll handle this chapter with maturity too. Fans are devastated, sure, but many are also sending love and support to both of them, hoping they find happiness apart, if not together. So there you have it, the rise and fall of Nicole and Keith's epic love story. From a chance meeting and storybook wedding to a shocking split full of drama, rumors, and raw emotion. It's a lot to take in. We'll keep our eyes peeled for any new developments, because who knows, this tale might have a few more twists yet. In the meantime, we wish both Nicole and Keith the best as they navigate life post-divorce. And hey, maybe down the road we'll get a killer breakup album from Keith or an award-winning film performance from Nicole channeling this heartbreak, turning pain into art, as they do. For now, let's all raise a glass to the end of an era. It's been one heck of a 20-year ride for Ms. Kidman and Mr. Urban. Whether or not a reunion ever happens, never say never, their love story won't be forgotten, and who knows, perhaps this split will eventually lead to new beginnings that are better for them and their family. Sometimes the end of one story is just the start of another. Thanks for watching and hanging out for the scoop. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe for more hot celeb tea. And let us know in the comments, are you Team Nicole, Team Keith, or just Team Love hoping they beat the odds and reunite? Stay tuned, stay fabulous, and remember, even in heartbreak, the show must go on. Until next time, gossip lovers, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.